This is the clarification of chapter 5, verse 75. Again, chapter 5, verse 116 makes it clear that Allah does not consider the Trinity to be Him, Mary, and Jesus. When He does address the issue of Jesus and Mary being taken as gods, He says, again, when Allah will say, "O Jesus, son of Mary, did you say to men, take me and my mother for two gods besides Allah, other than Allah?" Again, the Arabic here is min dunillahi, which means min dun means without. So here he is clearly showing that when it comes to this issue of Jesus or Mary being taken as God, they are taken as gods to the exclusion of Allah, not including Him. Now, when I made this clear in the previous video, he made a response that somehow this verse further tightens the noose, around my neck, or showing further that Allah is wrong. I don't know how, because again, this refutes your claim. Your claim was that the Quran wrongly states that the Trinity, it consists of God, Jesus, and Mary. This verse proves that that is not correct, as we have already shown, and you cannot show. Note where does the text, the actual text of the Quran, show that Mary is part of the Trinity. Now, if you're going to argue that this verse, chapter 5, 116, is wrong because it states that Jesus and Mary were taken as gods besides the real God, and you're gonna try to say that that's wrong. Again, if you're going to use that argument that your sect of Christianity doesn't do that, or Christians didn't do that, then let me cut you off right now. Historically, there indeed were groups. You already admitted about the Coloridians. They were obviously enough of an impact that your early church father had to write about them and condemning them for their practices. So obviously such groups of people did exist. And of course, they say that this group died out before the time of Muhammad, but we have proof that this type of worship of Mary continued not only to that time, but even beyond the time of the Prophet. Even in the European Middle Ages, there were large amounts of people who worshipped Mary and attributed divinity to Mary. For example, in the book The Virgin by Jeffrey Ash on page 179, he writes of a 5th century historian by the name of Sozomen who describes Mary as such. He says, "A divine power was there manifested and was helpful in walking visions and in dreams, often for the relief of many diseases and for those afflicted by some sudden transmutation in their affairs. The power was attributed to Mary, the mother of God, the Holy Virgin, for she does manifest herself in this way." This is a clear description giving her divinity. We read further in the book The Virgin on page 191, where it reads, "When a council at Ephesus in 431 implied that Mary could be safely worshipped, crowds burst into delirious celebrations, accompanied by torchlight processions and shouts of "Praised be the Theotokos," meaning the Mother of God. Another story from the book on page 219 illustrates her power and how people looked upon her as a deity that she could be prayed to. For example, it reads, "A thief prays to her before going out to rob, and when he is hanged, she sustains him in the air till the hangman acknowledges the miracle and lets him live. A nun who leaves her convent to plunge into vice, but keeps praying to Mary, returns at last to find that Mary has taken her place and no one has missed her." So these are clear examples that even after the time of Muhammad, even into the Middle Ages, people continued to worship Mary in various ways. They could claim that they were just seeking her help, but when you pray to her, when they claim that she has these power to perform these miracles on their behalf, this is clearly giving her divinity and worshiping her. Here's another book that also shows how the devotion to Mary, the worship of Mary, continued way past the time of Muhammad even. The Cult of the Virgin in Anglo-Saxon England by Mary Clayton. It says that the cult of the Virgin Mary is associated by most medievalists with the 12th and succeeding centuries. This book, however, provides a wide-ranging exploration of the cult in England from 700 to the Conquest. Interest in a devotion to Mary flourished in the late 7th and 8th centuries, and especially in the period of the Benedictine reform from the mid-10th century onwards. So don't you dare claim that Allah didn't know what he was talking about because Christians didn't worship Mary and that's not a common. Oh, yes, the hell it was a very common and widespread practice, as these books have shown us. So we see that my reading of 575 is the correct reading, using the principle that all scholars agree is the best tafsir, which is the Quran giving tafsir of itself. As we read from the book, the Sciences of the Quran, an introduction to the science of the Quran, the Arabic is Ulum al-Quran, on page 123 we read, the best tafsir is the explanation of the Quran by the Quran. However, nothing can match the explanation of the Quran by the Quran and the explanation of the Quran by the Prophet. The interpretation of the Quran by the Quran is the highest source of tafsir. Many of the questions which may arise out of certain passages of the Quran have their explanation in other parts of the very same book, and often there is no need to turn to any other sources other than the words of Allah, which in itself contains tafsir. You did not do that. You failed to do that. I have done that, and by me doing so has shown that in another verse it clearly shows that Allah does not take the Trinity to be him, Jesus, and Mary, because when he addresses the idea of Mary and Jesus being taken as gods, he clearly says that they are taken as gods without him, excluding him, not including him. So therefore you cannot claim that any of those verses that are speaking of the Trinity means that the Trinity is him, Jesus, and Mary, because he clearly says that they are taken as gods without him, excluding him. And since you want to try to strengthen your argument by citing that you have these tafsirs from some companions or whatever the case may be, look what Ahmed van Defner says in his book on page 129. He says, sound reports must be distinguished from unsound ones, for many views have been falsely attributed to some companions and the followers of the companions, especially to Ibn Abbas and Mujahid. So there you go. Failure again. We see that according to chapter 5 verse 116, when Allah addresses the issue of Jesus being taken as a god and Mary being taken as a god, it is clearly stated that they are taken as gods to the exclusion of Allah, not including Allah. They are taken as gods without Allah being included. The verse is very clear. The Arabic is very clear. So therefore, you cannot come and tell me that 575 or 573, when it says say not 3, means that that is the case, because the Quran clearly states that that is not the case, that they are taken as gods excluding him, without him. So therefore, the error is on your part. The mistake is on your part. It is your fault that you don't know the extensiveness of Christian history to know that indeed there were many groups of Christians, both before the time of Muhammad, at the time of Muhammad, and way after the time of Muhammad, even into the Middle Ages in Europe, that continued to have devotion and worship of Mary and giving her divine powers. So that is very clear. So the mistake and the fault is yours for being ignorant about Christian history. And again, you keep using this argument about, well, hey, these scholars have said this, these scholars. Again, I repeat, no, show me the scholar that says his interpretation is based on what Muhammad had taught. Show me where they say that. Show me where any of them say that. If you can't say that, then it doesn't hold that much weight other than it being the opinion of that person. And so I will end this the same way our debate months ago ended, where I refuted you very clearly. Can you show me where Allah clearly states that the Trinity includes Mary? And can you clearly give us a tafsir that says Muhammad said that this is what the Trinity consists of? If not, then you have totally failed. Your argument is destroyed.
Finish him. Fatality.